Assalamu alaikum. Today I'm here with another board game review, and today I'm going to be telling you that why you should play Imperial Settlers Roll and Write, a competitive game for 1 to 4 players from Portal Games about from inspired from the theme of Imperial Settlers, where you will be building your own settlement, gaining resources, using those resources to expand your settlement and your empire until you reach the imperial status. This is going to be a roll and write. So you will be rolling some dice from which you will be gaining resources, you expanding your settlement based upon that, and then gaining victory points from that. Now, this game slightly before the era of heavy roll and write games, and it didn't get that much love in that timeline because maybe people were expecting light roll and write games at that time, and this one was really involved and kind of slightly towards the heavy side. It's not a very complex game. It's still going to be a simple game in which you will be getting resources, using those resources to do different things, either getting additional bonuses or using those resources to expand your settlement. But there is enough strategic decisions and choices that are available, which does increase its complexity over your standard roll and write games. But now we live in an age and day where roll and write games are heavy roll and write games are also available. There is Hadrian's Wall, Feed the Dice Game, Three Sisters, and many more. Dinosaur Island, Roar and Write. So those kind of complex, slightly more complex Yoroi games have been made into roll and write, and people are more keen to accepting that. So I do think that this game needs to get more limelight when people are accepting those kind of complex games. This game does need to get more limelight as well because, well, it is a really good game as well, which is going to satisfy the needs of Eurogamers as well as still playing in a reasonably short time. So what it states is that it completes in 30 minutes, which is kind of accurate. So if you're getting your Euro needs done in a 30-minute game, that's a really good touch that you can get done. Plus, it has some polynomial action, which you expect in a roll and write. So a lot of good things compiled up in this package. So let's get to the table and understand how this game works, and then I will tell you in the end about my final thoughts about the game. So let's get on with it. So in the game of Imperial Settlers, you will be presented with two pieces of paper. One will be showing your settlement or your empire, and one will be showing your buildings. Now, right now you see two options for these buildings. One booklet is for the solo mode and comes with a variety of buildings on each page, a different challenge. Each building has different kind of functionality and different resource requirements. So the solo mode is much more interactive and is going to be more full of variety of what you're going to do on each of the missions. But when it comes to competitive game, you will be using this standard booklet of buildings, which is going to have the same buildings on each and every page. So when you give out one of these sheets to each of the players, it's going to be the same sheet that goes to every player. They will have the same building, same functionality. Now, I do wish that even for competitive, they had included these kind of multiple sheets for each and every player. But that's a separate add-on that you can purchase from Portal Games website. But anyway, let's look at what comes for the competitive game by default, which is going to be this package. So every player is going to have one sheet for the settlement and one sheet for the base buildings that they are going to have. The overall gist of the game is going to be players are going to roll the dice, which are going to show the resources. Using those resources, these are the resources they have gathered. using the resources in their empire. They are going to, this tells how many resources they will have to actually clear out the area to develop their settlements. So they will be cutting off that many areas in this upper empire section to indicate that how much settlement they have done. To gain additional resources, the bottom section is going to be the field section. From the fields, they can send additional workers if they have any to gain additional resources as well, which might not have come through the dice. They can get additional resources from these different fields. Using those resources, they can also build buildings in the settlements that they have created. So you must have already created settlements, or lands must have been settled before you create these upgraded buildings to improve your actions. So these are bonus abilities that add up to your existing empire. These give boosting actions. Once you have created a building, it will tell you a polynomial shape. That polynomial shape will come up here, and that will indicate you have created a building in your settlement. So a combination of multiple of these boxes is going to indicate the shape of a certain type of building, and that bonus will from now on activate. And that's how the game is going to work. And you will then be scoring based on these. The stars indicate that wherever the players will start cutting, build up the settlements, the stars will tell how much score they have obtained. And based on these stars, you will be doing the total at the end here later on. And whatever is the total, that player will be declared the winner, whoever has the highest total. In between, what else will be there? Once the dice are rolled, there will be one bonus additional action which will be through these tiles. So that might give someone additional gold, additional resources, additional worker, things like that, or exchange of resources. And that's the gist of the game. Now, let's, once you have understood the overall concept, it's going to be a typical Euro game, but in a roll and write format. You're gathering resources, building your settlements, upgrading your actions, and then getting scores based on that. Let's now go into a sample game, a sample typical detail of what you will be doing on your turn. First of all, these favor tiles, you will not be using all 5 which come with the game. These favor tiles are, as I said, give you bonus actions, even which have not come on the dice. So for example, the lucky coin lets you get additional coin. The boon token, choose a result on a resource die and gain +1 of that resource. So for example, if I choose food has come on this die result, so instead of 1 food, I will be getting 2 food. Next is ally, I will gain 1 additional worker. So right now the dice shows 3 workers, but using this tile, I will be getting 4 workers. Then yield is going to be that if I have 1 resource, up to 1 resource of every kind, I can sell those off for additional victory points. That's export. I can export up to 3 resources of different types, of which I have collected in this round, to gain up to 1 victory point. So if any of your resources are going to go to waste because the resources are only used in that round and cannot be preserved for next round, so if that's going to be the case, it might be better to just sell off those, export those resources and gain victory points from them. What is yield going to do? You're going to choose a result on 2 resource dice, harvest those resources for free. So you can select those resources and harvest those resources from your fields for free. Otherwise, as I have told you, that you will need additional workers to be sent to the field to actually gain those resources. But if you're using this, then even without the workers, it must be one of those resources or 2 of those resources which are shown already on the dice, and you can cut them from the fields to gather additional. So that indicates your yield or your production has been more fruitful this year. So these are bonus actions. But what you do is that you will randomly shuffle them, and for each of the game, the number of tiles that will be available will be based upon the number of players. So for example, for a 2-player game, only 3 tiles will come out, which will indicate what 3 actions are going to be additionally available. The other tiles are never going to be used for this game, and only these 3 tiles are going to be available. Now what's going to happen is active player is going to roll the dice. It indicates what resources are going to be available. We are in the first round. One of the things that I do recommend, because the game does not provide any proper means of doing that, is do write down what resources you have, because it's slightly harder to track that which resources you have already consumed. So for example, if I had to write, I will be making that I have, for example, three, you can indicate whichever way you like. I have 3 workers and I have 2 gold, and I have 1 stone. Now, why are workers I'm showing as lines? I will cut each of these workers as I use them, because the workers are going to be working somewhere. So for example, these dotted lines or solid square lines indicate that a resource is required, a worker is required to be sent here to uh, get this work done. So there is stone required to clear out this settlement area. So I can, and I do have 1 stone from this. So I'll be cutting off 1 stone and 1 worker, because that worker will carry that stone to that area, to actually cut this off. And this indicates right now that I have gained 1 victory point. Of course, as we move along, we will be reading the last value, whichever is visible, that how many victory points I have done. Plus I have 2 gold right now, and 2 gold you can assume as your wild resources, which can be used for anything. So I still have 2 gold. So maybe I do want to progress much on fruits. So one of the things, I still have 2 workers. These 2 boxes represent that 2 separate workers will be required to actually get this done. 1 single box represent with 2 woods inside means that only 1 worker with 2 wood is good enough for this. But here 2 squares or 3 squares actually mean that I will need 3 workers to get this 1 box done. So it's a more difficult challenge. Other than going towards this side, I can go towards my building side as well and try to get something crossed off here, because one of the things that I will try to do is get one of these buildings constructed, because as soon as you get some buildings constructed, it can improve your passive income bonus as well, which is going to be helpful with your game. But to construct that building, you must have settlement done at least first. So it's a chicken and the egg situation, but ideally you must have at least some settlement done in your empire to improve the building, then come back to empire to improve more settlements later on. Ideally that should be the cycle of things. For now, what I have selected is, you don't need to complete all of them in one turn. I'll be using 2 gold with my remaining 2 workers, and I've cut all of them off to gather to actually send these 2 fruits to food back to this settlement area. Now next time I just need 1 additional worker, and that's where these favors are going to come into place as well. Being the active worker, even before I start cutting these, I will be able to select one of these tiles as what I'm going to do on my turn, or a favor that I'm going to take from chief of the settlement or whatever. So for example, I do know I will be requiring additional ally or worker, and that's the tile I'm going to take. That will give the second player, I'm showing a 2-player game, he will have choices of from 2 tiles, and he will be picking up 1 tile from those. So for example, he picks up this tile, and that's what they will be doing, and 1 tile will always be left unused. So this gave me 1 additional resource, which let me cut this. So a 3rd worker was required, but no resource was required, which worked perfectly for what I wanted. And this box is now complete as well. So I've completed 2 boxes in 1 round, and that's how my first round got completed. Similarly, then the next player will become the active player. They will be rolling the dice. They will be having these resources. These tiles, favor tiles, will go back. And then the second player will be choosing first what tile they want. So for example, this time they wanted the export tile. I selected that maybe I want the boon tile this time, which is going to give me choose a dice result on a resource die and gain one additional resource of that type. So maybe the gold resource I want to increase by one, which is a wild resource anyway. So I want to increase that by one, and that's what I can do. So it is giving me four workers, 1 2 3 4, and I have four resources as well. So for example, the first resource, those two gold I'm going to use to be used as wood, because the wood has not still come on the dice. But one worker with two golds that I have, because I use the boon to actually increase this, I have used the gold to send and cut additional wood. Then I am going to use my second worker to be cut one of these, start preparing this farm area. Then I'm going to use, I still have two workers left. So one worker I'm sending to cut stone. Now let me show how the field area works. It might not be useful in this turn, so let's wait for one more turn. And then I have one apple left and one worker left, so I might be able to cut this as well. And this is how I will keep going. Now at least I have one shape available. So next time, if you see here, what I want to do is I want it to have at least a shape available so that I can build a farm. And this shows the polynomial shape and else shape, which is required that once I have cut this shape, I will be able to build a farm. And right now I have made this available, but I cannot still do it because to build the farm itself, I need to give these many resources. Remember, the square shape means you need to give resources. The circle shape means I receive resources. So maybe the next turn comes, let me quickly show. The next turn comes and I have three resources. Let's say I took this time additional worker and the other one took the boon one. Now I have a wood, four workers because of this ally. I have four workers, 1 2 3 4. So using one of my workers, I'm just doing this. Using my second worker with the wood I have consumed, I'm sending him here. And this has now completed my farm. As soon as I complete my farm, I can mark this area, the outline, based on the shape that's shown here. And once I mark that shape, one mistake, I have to exactly, I cannot rotate these shapes. I have to exactly mark the same shape. So sorry for that mistake, but I have to mark that same shape. So let's say with this apple, I can still complete that. I will be using one more worker to cut this apple. Now I have this exact shape available and ready. And now I can mark this shape here. So my one farm is ready now. As soon as my farm is ready, what it's going to do is enable this bonus for me, which is going to say gain one apple. Now, next time, if I am able to make another shape, let's say I was able to, in some future turns, I was able to cut this also, this is already cut, and I'm able to make another shape like this here. So I cannot use any existing areas which have been already consumed in making a farm. I cannot use those areas to make any other polynomial shape. But if I was able to make another polynomial, then of the same farm, then this value is going to get increased to 2. I can mark it as 2. So next time on each of my turn, I'm going to get this bonus is only applicable to me. I'm going to get one additional, instead of one apple, I'm going to get two additional apples. So irrespective of what gets rolled on the dice, I will be getting these resources, plus my farm is generating additional food for me. So in this way, you will be creating these different polynomials. You will be providing these resources, cutting different polynomial shapes based upon the building shapes here and getting those bonuses. What can those bonuses be like? So let me give you a quick overview of some of them. So for example, if you have at least two resource dice showing the same result. So for example, in this roll, I had two dice showing the same result, two food or two apple were shown. Two results were shown, then you gain one additional worker. So these are settlers. So if you have settlers, then if you are having two resources, then instead of four settlers in this round, I will have five settlers, a bonus exclusive to me. Once the other player is able to complete this bonus, he might have. And once again, if I'm able to make multiple polynomial shapes, this value, underlined value, will keep on increasing. I can increase it to 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Then there are going to be tool shop. It's a T-shaped polynomial. Each time you harvest, gain +1 resource of that kind. So whenever I do the harvest from the fields, I will gain additional resources. So let's go to the harvest section, which is going to be one of those actions. So let's say in this turn, I had one worker from here and 4 workers from here. So I have 5 workers and only 3 resources. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 workers but only 3 resources. So I know I will have additional worker available. So one of the workers, one of the things that I can do is send him on one of these extended area, outside area, for exploration and getting resources from outside area. But before I can send them to these additional outside areas, one of the requirements is going to be that I have to build bridges to reach up to that region. This is where the last row comes in. To build the first bridge to reach up to this area, it says that I must have sent 2 workers to complete these 2 boxes at different times or same time to actually complete these 2. So let's assume in any of my previous turns I had done that I had cut these 2 boxes, which will complete this bridge, which does mean this bridge is now complete. Once this bridge is complete, so that means my empire is now connected to by a bridge to this field. There is still a bridge here. There is still a bridge here. There is still a bridge here. So I can access this area, but still not this field. And similar bridge shapes are shown here as well. So to access these additional areas, I need to start reaching. You can always cut from left to right. You can never cut that, okay, I'm completing this bridge first. That's not going to be possible. You have to expand from left to right. So that's why you will be slowly, once you are able to complete this, you will be circling these bridges to indicate that you have expanded to the next area as well. Now, once you do have access to this, let's say our turn came now at this time. I have 5 workers and I have access to these 2 fields. What can I do? One of these workers can go, I really needed, for example, wood. Then what I can get wood from here. So there are some trees here and a wood symbol is shown here. So I can send one of the workers to cut a wood, which will give me 1 additional wood. So one of my workers has been used. I still have 4 workers left, 3 resources and 1 additional resource I got, which is wood. So now I have 4 resources, 1 wood, 2 apple, 1 stone and 4 resources available to me. But I needed 1 more wood. So I can send 1 more worker to cut 1 more wood. Now I have 3 workers, 2 wood, 2 apples and 1 stone. Using my 3rd worker, I'm sending that worker to cut, to build something here, my settlement here of 2 wood. That's why I need it. I have now 2 workers left and this much. So maybe if I use these 2 to cut these 2 apples, my stone is going to get lost. Because here I needed 2 stones, but I had only one stone. So even if I had sent my worker to this area, I will not be able to accomplish my task. The other thing that I could have done is, if I was trying to actually invest in the tool shop required one stone. So I could have sent one worker with one stone here. And these can be cut in any order that I like. So I can send the stone first. Once I have accomplished this, in future, if the tool was done and I was able to make that tool shade shape, you can color them up as you like so that you know this area has been used. So if I was able to make the tool shop, then at least what I will be able to do is that next time I had to previously send two workers to get two different kind of wood. But next time, when even if I send one worker to cut one wood, due to the tool shop efficiency, this one wood will convert into two wood. So my one worker is able to work more efficiently using the tools. Now he has axe, he has proper wood cutting tools, and he's able to cut wood more efficiently. And that's what these buildings are going to do. In addition, these buildings can give permanent just victory points. They some of these buildings don't do anything else. So for example, the architect's building, you gain 8 victory points for just making the architect's a house. The fortress building, there are different resources and you get different rewards, different victory points just for giving those resources or contributing those resources to building the fortress stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's how these buildings work. And I've also explained how these work. Now, once we have gone through multiple rounds, once the 10 rounds are over, you will be seeing that on each of the row, how much you have gone maximum to the right side. So, for example, right now, I was able to, even though in future rounds, I will be able to reach further ahead. But just to show the example, in stone, I was only able to reach up to here. So I will be able to write just 2 here, because that indicates that I was able to get the last value from here, 2 stars. In wood, it's 8 stars. Here I'm able to get 8 also in food track. And that's the value of my settlement or empire that I have built. 4 from here. Now, these are any victory points from any settlements. So if I had any architects or fortress investment, let's say I had 0 from here. This additional box is for any bonus victory points that I was able to get along the way. So for example, using the export tile, if I was doing any exports in different turns, I will be writing them here and then adding all of these up and then writing whatever the total comes up. For example, 52, let's say it was 52 or whatever the number comes up. This area is just for your name, that okay, who was playing the game or your name of the empire. And that's how you will total up your score and give you the indication of how much you have or how much your settlement is worth. Whoever has the highest victory points is going to be the winner. Now that you have seen how the game works, let's now talk about the elephant in the room, which is going to be these building types. I had touched about them a little bit, and that's going to be my biggest and main caveat with the game. The solo sheets or solo buildings that come with this game are so much fun. They come with so much variety, and each and every page has different artwork, different functionality that's written on them. And to me, that was so surprising that they went out of their way in developing this solo book. But when it came to the competitive book, which is what I expect many people will be playing more than the solo game, it's the same artwork, same functionality throughout the rule book. Now, I do understand that that might have been a constraint of that, okay, how many pages of different variety of sheets do we put in a box? But I really do think that they could have made maybe these as dry erase boards, the typical one which they wanted to, a laminated sheet, cardboard, whatever cardstock, which is dry erasable, so that you don't have to include a whole pad of these, which you wanted as typical, but provided at least 2 to 4 pads of these variety of buildings inside the game box. It might have increased the price slightly, but it would have decreased the amount of angst the people had against this game. Or another option would have been that don't even include this in your base game box and release it as a separate expansion. Now, and reduce your overall cost of the game itself. Why I'm saying that is because when people do see that there are going to be so much variety that was already thought of, already artwork was made, already everything was worked out, and we are not even allowed to play with it because it's only for solo players, then they feel bad that okay, there is a whole chunk of components in this game which they cannot play with, and they are left with the typical sheets on each and every page. That's bad. If they had released that as a separate solo expansion, or even a pack of 4 pads for a variety of buildings, that would have been much better, because then you can play it as competitive as cooperative, and people would have easily paid that money as an expansion to get those 4 additional pads. Now these pads, these additional sheets are available as a separate bind, but I'm just talking about how the base game was boxed, and I do think some decisions were taken wrongly of how this game was packaged. Now, with that caveat out of the way, let's come back to how this game makes you feel. I've given some opinion in the start as well, and which is that this game feels like a full Euro game that you have played in a very short amount of time, and that's no easy feat. So you have collected resources, you have worked on those bonuses, you have worked on building an empire, build up your land, build up buildings, and all on 2 sheets of paper in just 30 minutes. So it's a grand feeling that you get. It's not a short. After you're done, you don't feel like that you have played a filler game. You feel that you have been fulfilled. You feel satisfied after playing this game even one time, and you have just spent 30 minutes. And that's a great feeling to have. The components are really nice. The dice are wooden dice. These are screen printed wooden dice. They are very clear. The resources are really understandable. The tiles are nice. The artwork on these sheets is really beautiful. The other bad thing about this is the resource tracking, especially for the amount of workers. Now, there are separate sheets, printable sheets that are available on the Portal Games website, where you can track how many resources did you gather through the bonus, because you might be getting additional resources even after the dice are rolled through harvesting, through bonus tiles, through favor tiles, and those kind of bonuses do add up. And then you will have, did I use my wood? Do I have additional food? Did my buildings generate enough food? And you will lose track. So there is a resource tracking sheet on which you can track those food, but then you will be having another sheet along with 2 sheets already, which where you will be tracking those instead. Again, what would have been better that this sheet would have been the same size as your normal, and it would have been just a foldable paper, for example an A4 size paper, and you would open it, and the tracking of the resources was part of that sheet as well. So again, few things that could have been fixed in the game. Resource tracking is going to be a pain, and many players are going to do it wrong, and sometimes you will have to just go by, okay, that's all I remember. Maybe I'm taking advantage, or maybe I have lost some of the advantage that I had, and that's where you will be. But Other than that, the game itself is a really good game. And I hope that by all my comments that I have provided, there aren't many components in this game or too many mechanisms. The polynomial works fine, the resource collection is simple, and then the bonus that you get, the decision that when do you go for bonuses and when do you go for expanding your settlement or cutting or expanding your settlement, because you are going to get, for example, if I cut two more apples here, I'm going to go from 12 points to 14 points, but there aren't enough turns left for me to invest in a new type of building which is going to give me an ongoing bonus. So those are the kind of decisions that you will be thinking over and trying to min max your decisions that you will be having. And that's the key thing that you expect from a Euro game, that you have those multiple paths and you are trying to optimize your moves. And that's everything that you are going to get in this game. But it does come with a few flaws, which I have told you about: the resource gathering and a feeling of same repetitive sheets that you will be feeling in the game. If you're a solo player, then I highly recommend it, because whatever I have said as the problem for the game, that is going to work in your favor. But if you have access to photocopy or printing facility, then you can overcome by investing a little bit more money. Or if you are interested, put a little bit more money and pay to portal to get the printed pads, multiple copies itself. So there are, by investing a little bit more, you can get the full fledged feeling of a full exposure or full experience of Imperial Settlers roll and write out of this game. So overall, it's a good Euro roll and write, and if you're looking for that kind of roll and writes are not very common in the industry, but if you're looking for one, then I can recommend this with a few caveats to everyone. Hopefully, this review was good enough to make up your decision that whether this game is going to be right for you or not. That's it for me. And if it was useful, don't forget to like and subscribe. That's it for me. Happy gaming!